Now, question is, how do you change? How do you shift? And why you should also think of changing. And I think that's where my first point was, at any point of time, you should do a thorough analysis in terms of what is your culture right now, what your culture should be, and if there is a change, then you should get into the change journey. If you feel that your current culture is aligned to what you are trying to deliver on strategically, there is no need to change. But if you find that there is a misalignment between what culture means for the leadership team, for the managers, and for the front line, you cannot but have to do a cultural transformation. And for culture transformation to happen, for a small change in our schedule, we take so much of time and resistance. And you're talking about organization. And organization is built of individuals, and that's where we need to understand the individuals' notion of why they resist change, what are the barriers they have in their mind, and then try to change that. But also, you need to create structures and systems around this change management so that people go into the flow on a period of time. So if you feel that culture needs to be changed, it has to be backed by data, and that data will come from culture scan, which talks about what is your current culture, what is your future culture should be, what is your strategy, and whether they are aligned or not. If they are, then the Kurt Lewin's phrase of unfreeze, like if you have a cube of ice and you want to turn it into a round ball, so first you have to unfreeze, then you have to change the shape, and then you have to freeze. So I think that's the overall change management process as far as culture change is concerned. But it has to start from defining what you want to be, and then bring appropriate systems and processes around it. How does Aon does? So we do our best employer research every year, which has the 4 distinct pillars. One is we ask that employees should be engaged. If you really want to bring some change in culture, you have to demonstrate that employees are there with your heart and mind, and there is a very different subject altogether we will talk about. Then another pillar of this cultural transformation is your effective leadership team, your employer brand, how it is perceived internally and externally, and most importantly, the high performance culture of the firm ensures that you are somebody who is constantly looking at driving performance from people. So if you have got 4 things in place, we categorize you as one of the best employers, and best employers definitely deliver better business results. Now the question is, if I pick up high performance culture, we want to build a high performance culture, how should we go about it? So now what we see, companies who can do this better, they do 3 things. First is, they start with creating a very clear accountability and trust with their people. So the goals are very clear, you know where you are going, and then rewards are designed in such a way which allows people to be rewarded not only of what, but also how, okay? And then they also talk about that if you are doing it consistently, then do we have a career path for you in the firm so that you can grow on a on a continuous basis. So if I am somebody who is seeing that there is a clear goal in front of me, there are rewards aligned to what I do, and they also see a career path around myself, and there are great examples of people who have actually done this and being successful, you slowly but surely will start building a culture which is high performance. That's how best employers do. And if you look at, and I'm now coming to action, what you should be doing. Okay, so it's not only theoretical. So companies who bring change from culture perspective, they work on 3 sides: leadership and people programs, and enabling infrastructure. But at the core of this is your competitive strategy. Now, what do I mean by that? So for example, I chose to be a product leadership company, okay, and I feel that I am somebody who will be based on innovation. Now, the leadership style, the people I will hire, the programs which I will have, and the infrastructure I will build would be aligned towards making people more innovative, right? And if I want to be a customer-centric organization, then my leadership style, then my processes, and then my people programs will bring out that. If I am somebody who wants to be a process-oriented company, then the entire thing will change. So for example, GE is a process-led company. So most of the people programs will be around, everything will go through process. For example, a company like Zappos is a customer-centric company. So they say every customer we serve, they should be wowed by our experiences. So they will be somebody who will create a structure around customer centricity. Then you will have somebody like an Apple who is a product innovator company. So they will have their systems and processes around created in such a way in which they are delivering on that. We are not saying that you can choose either or, but all three are important. But as a firm, if you decide that the strategic direction we are taking is this one, then the entire thing changes from a people perspective, leader perspective, and enabling infrastructure perspective. And we have got a lot of data around how leaders influence culture, how leaders can show caring, visibility, and accessibility. And we also talk about that how leadership competencies should be built at different levels so that people can experience similar behaviors. And then if we are able to do that, then you have the right people programs. So these behaviors can convert into competency models, and that can be part of your goal setting as well as your performance evaluations. And if you are evaluating people on those behaviors, then you are rewarding also in an appropriate manner, and they are growing in the organization based on what they displayed. So you can see the link between what leadership is looking at from a strategic perspective, converting into people processes, and then you create an environment or an infrastructure where people can actually go and deliver that, okay? So these are the three things which becomes very, very critical from a practitioner perspective. Now, this is one slide you can take away with you, because if in your team, in your company, in your organization, if you are trying to build a change, this is the change process, okay? This is how action takes place. So you start from understanding business and the organizational context, then you create a questionnaire which understands the cultural poles, that are you risk averse versus risk taking, are you a bureaucratic company to a democratic company, are you somebody who is very rigid versus very flexible. So these are the poles. And then you seek inputs from your people and then see that if there is a gap. If there is a gap, then you really understand specific data points, what millennials are saying, what your leadership is saying, what your high performers are saying, what your hypos are saying. Do they think culture distinct from each other? If they are seeing that distinctly, that means there is no alignment from an organization perspective. That is done, then the question should be around how do we convert some of the future cultural elements in the people processes as well as the infrastructure which we have inside us. And then once that is done, then you talk about that cultural transformation, you talk about the initiatives, and you also talk about how these initiatives are going to help us be a company with a culture which is quite distinct. Now, I go to a lot of companies where they say that we are trying to build trust, and when you go and try to enter their premise, the company, the employees have to put at least 3 or 4 identification process, which makes me feel that are you trusting me enough? So on one side, the stated vision is something else, but the experience from an outsider also is something different. So how do you align that becomes very, very critical from a cultural change perspective. And I think this is, even if when we have a consulting assignment with any of the companies whom we are working on culture change, this is the model which we apply. So starting with understanding the design current status, then analyzing what your business wants and where is the gap, and third is implementing this with your integrating with your people processes and infrastructure so that it has an ongoing impact on the culture change. And this culture change does not happen overnight or 2 or 3 months. it's something which is a journey, and we also say that you should be measuring it on a regular basis. Some of the examples I will give, if you read cases, maybe I'm just leaving this around for you to really think of. Companies like Ford, they said, think critically and be curious, and they had programs around the company to really ask questions, really be curious, and then you have webinars, you have sessions, you have town halls where you can come and discuss anything, which is being driven by the CEO, which gives a message that as an organization, it is okay to not know everything. You can be curious and you can help each one of us grow and then see how some of this learning can be applied to our day-to-day business processes. You have a company like Microsoft where they deliberately talk about failing. Okay, they say that people celebrate success, we will celebrate failures. So, as long as the intention was right and we learned something out from the experiments which we did, we are absolutely fine with it. And some of these things have been practiced by Tata Group now. So in 2007, they started a campaign around failing. And they asked their group companies to come and share what is the biggest failures they have and what are the learnings they could have. In 2007, when this initiative started, only 7 entries came where they accepted that we have failed, because there was a fear that if we go out and tell our business bosses that we have failed into this and we have spent so much of amount of money, resources, what will be the implication? But they were surprised that the leadership was extremely supportive of the failures, and they said it's very good that we have got so many people coming out. And as years went by, now there are more than 150 such cases coming from the group perspective where people are openly discussing their failures in a forum where everybody can learn from their failures. So I think this gives the message to the entire group that it's okay to fail, and you can also see that this is a innovation-based culture which they are trying to build. So it's also about risk-taking culture they are building. So that means it's okay to fail, it's okay to take risks. It's not about just doing the same thing and saying, okay, incrementally we are fine. It's the name of the guy who experimented. It's an email which was sent, right? Okay, so there are a lot of examples. I think since I don't have a lot of time, but I will just mention some of the Indian case studies, like the asset management company of Reliance. It's a great example of how you build a culture of diversity. And instead of hiring people from asset management company background and from financial services, they proactively went to different business from rural world. Then I need to get somebody who understands the rural market well, and that's where their marketing head was brought from a FMCG company. When they talk about the innovation in the digital side needs to be brought in from a different angle, they went to hire somebody from a tech company to come and create their infrastructure around technology. So depending upon what the need of the business was, they got the best of the people from different industry rather than just relying on what their industry then provide them. And so much so that 90% of the CXO talent is from within, and 75% of the next line talent is also from within. So they don't have to get anybody from outside. It's a great example to have. And a lot of examples around DHL, Tata Communication, DBS, where they talked about that how in everybody's goal, we will have 3 measures. How much we are delivering to stakeholders, how much we are delivering to, we are being a best employer, and how we are delivering to the society. And they also said that how do we also transform ourselves digitally from a future learning perspective. And they created AI-based learning models for each of the managers. So if you are in DBS, based on your current level of role and current level of your understanding of what you are supposed to do, AI will come and say, you should definitely do these 3 courses in next 3 months so that you can be better in what you do on a day-to-day basis. And I think they have one of the most innovative company for digital transformation based on the culture which they want to bring is that one is learning agility as well as how, how as a firm we can enable people to continuously add to themselves. So I think that's the culture shift came in from their perspective. Okay, so now coming to the closure, I think 4 things, 4 takeouts which I would like to leave you with. One is, if you are trying to create a culture, first and foremost thing is you should be linking it with your strategy. Culture cannot be left in isolation because it will not give you anything. So first is deciding what type of culture, what type of company you want to be, and then aligning your culture towards that. That is number 1. Second is, how do you make it practical? So can the culture behaviors can be converted into competencies, can be evaluated, can be rewarded, and can be promoted. So I think that's the second bit. So it's not a fluffy message which you give, but you say that we can actually translate these behaviors into people programs. That's the number 2. Number 3 is, it's not about just letting it be out for everybody to see, but you have to also demonstrate through your behaviors on a day-to-day basis that this is something what is promoted here. And also when you fire somebody because of cultural misfit, that also is very important, because if integrity is something which is a pillar and you fire somebody because of not showing integrity, that also becomes stories inside the firm, that this is what is tolerated and this is what is not tolerated. And the last thing, I don't think a lot of companies measure their culture, and that's where they make a huge mistake, because they don't know, they are not aware that what is the cultural pillars they have. And once they measure, then the feedback around the same on a continuous basis is what a lot of companies don't do. And that's where they are very unaware of the type of culture they have built or they are working upon. So our recommendation is that you should also measure culture on a continuous basis, and also in specific segments which you are operating in, and also segments of your population which is there, which is important for you. So what is the sales people's perception on culture? What is your leadership perception on culture? What is the millennials' perception on culture? And when you bring it together, you realize that they have a distinct notion of the culture. That means something needs to be done. I think that's the point from my side. Thank you very much for being a patient listener, and really enjoyed. And thank you for this opportunity.